call to order at 8:33 this morning. And welcome everybody to our convening of the Financial Subcommittee in a very, very long time. I think the last time we're together might have even been pre-referendum possibly. So we've got a couple things we want to cover today that you can see on our agenda. Talk about roles, responsibilities, the purpose of our reconvening and what this means in this part of the process. We do have that invoice we need to evaluate, because if you remember from our building committee meeting, it's actually dependent upon review of this committee or subcommittee, excuse me, discuss the meeting schedule and anything else we need to at that point. So that's what we have ahead of us for this morning. So I appreciate everybody being with us. So why don't we go right on to item B, and that's to discuss subcommittee roles and responsibilities. And what I thought we would do, if this makes sense, is I know this was something that our professional partners kind of recommended that we put in place. So maybe we could start with that. I don't know, Mark, if you could kind of give us some thoughts on what the kind of the driving factor was behind maybe this, bringing this committee back together now for this purpose, and a little bit of background to help us for this conversation.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, you know, just thinking sort of in similar terms of the working group, and having the ability to sort of vet design changes and things that we wanted to bring forward, and bringing some expertise into a smaller group to, in this case, review any of the invoices that come in, any potential change orders that are being presented in a way that we can sort of discuss, vet, and be comfortable presenting, having this committee presenting to the full building committee, you know, a request for approvals of invoices, change orders, et cetera. And so this committee would have an opportunity to first see all of the invoices that are coming in, and the sort of track progress moving forward. And so we would be reviewing invoices for completeness, for percent complete work of work completed on the site. So if there are things that our contractors are invoicing O&G and we don't feel that, you know, we'll get field reports, and you'll get reports from us to sort of validate the percent of work complete that they're billing for. You know, it's gonna, as the project, if it's a $135 million project, we're going to see very large invoices. You know, we'll probably be at one point approving $5 million a month. So there's going to be a lot happening quickly, and we've got to keep up the pace. And so having this subcommittee meet to review and sort of bless what's being put forward, or have an opportunity to challenge what's being put forward, so that we can kind of get the appropriate answers to the committee and keep the process flowing. So what's going to be important is that we identify an approval process and a group of building committee members that are going to be able to be at that transition from this committee to the building committee, and share the work that this committee's done in vetting and approving each one of those invoices, right? So it's a lot of money going out. We'll have Sam kind of run through our tracking process and what we could potentially present to this committee just on top of, so that we can help streamline this process. I don't know if you want to do that now or you know, prior to getting to that, but I thought it might be good for Sam to sort of share sort of how we track things. Would that be all right to do now?
Yeah, I think that would be great, Mark. I think to start the kind of process of what kind of input would we have to the meetings that we would evaluate. Yeah.
And we can do it any way the committee's comfortable, or you know, what the committee wants to see. But Sam, if you could just kind of bring up our tracker, and then what we could potentially provide the committee when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give me access to be able to share my screen? I don't know who can.
Yep, you should be all set.
Okay, it says I can't share while someone else is sharing, so I don't know who.
So let me stop share, and then you should be able to go. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so can everyone kind of see at my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and like Mark said, we can kind of tailor this to however the committee would like to see. But this is just what we've done on previous projects, and it seemed to work pretty well when it comes to reviewing invoices and things like that. So this is your overall budget for the project. This is just for the high school. This is not inclusive of central office. So we have a whole second spreadsheet that looks exactly like this, just different numbers, and it's for the central office. So how we kind of break it out is we break it out by category. So we have, the architect, what their, original contract value was, and then all of their amendments associated with that. And then that all gets adjusted. And kind of how it runs through for the whole spreadsheet is we have, whatever the original contract value was, whatever the revised contract value is, what we've paid out of those amounts to date, and then what the balance is, and then it automatically will calculate the percentage complete based on the balance to pay, paid to date, and then the original budget. And then that's kind of, we run through the same thing. So we do the same thing for CSG for us, for all of our commissioning agents, inspections, hazmat monitoring, all of these other miscellaneous, costs associated with the project. And then we jump down to ONG. We keep track of their contract value and their changes. And then once we get FF&E and technology started, we'll input all the appropriate vendors here and keep track of those values as well. And then this keeps track of our owner contingency, which pulls from this side, which we've already started kind of tracking here. We start out with whatever, the 6.2 million for our owner contingency, and then we adjust per amendments, change orders, and things like that. And then it'll pull into this over here so we can keep track of everything. Does anyone have any questions on this before I jump to the next thing?
Hey, Sam, I would just also identify up at the very top, right? We've got a total project cost up there.
Yep.
And then you've got what'll be your ineligible costs, eligible. So what that means is what's eligible for state reimbursement and what's not. And so we'll be tracking those as well. You can see the reimbursement rates have been updated to the 30%, and then identifies what the town share is. There's also 11% retainage that the state requires, so that we get at the end of the job. So that we'll be tracking that percentage as well.
Yep.
I have a question, Sam. I'm not certain if I'm following, as you said, in other professional fees like CSG paid to date. I'm wondering why that column isn't more robust.
We haven't. I'm sorry, the CSG column, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our work in progress. So we've still got to input our tabs in there.
Oh, so you're saying that this is not an up-to-date schedule. This is sort of a template.
No, we've updated it as much as we could, and we're still in the process of inputting everything. So once we input everything up to this point, we can send it to whoever wants it, basically, and you guys can have it for your records if needed. But yeah, this is not like, as of today, this is where we stand. We just wanted to
Gotcha.
walk you through this to just kind of explain to you what.
Just in terms of how this lays out. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And then we'll just keep adding. Yeah, go ahead.
I have another question too. So in the architectural design and in, I think it would probably come in architectural work. Is there a separate area for construction administration, or are we considering that the CA work that TSKP will be doing is in the architectural space there?
Yeah, so Mark, you can correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but this is like their total contract value for the project. So that should include
Design and
CA.
construction administration.
Yes. Yep. And then
Okay.
their invoice will typically break out if it's, design, and then once we really get into the, the project, the construction administration, so their invoice will break it out more specifically. This is just more to keep like a general tracking of how much we paid TSKP, at various.
As a matter of process, do you, Megan and Kat and Mark or whoever, do you feel as though that this subcommittee will be reviewing the invoices, or that the invoices will be summarized and put into this spreadsheet and we review this spreadsheet? What's the level of work that you want the subcommittee to do?
So it would be my recommendation that we put a summary together. We have the supporting documentation, supporting invoices behind them, just like it happens in an agenda on the building committee, right? All the invoices are attached. Keep in mind, O&G's invoice will have all of the other subcontractor invoices behind it. And so we'll really be focusing on O&G's
the summary of O&G's
schedule values, correct? And then if we had any corrections or any, if O&G is building, is billing 85% for the steel, and we only see half of the building up, we're going to question the value, what's happening there. And so part of this committee is, and Nelson, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, I'm just saying your sub might, and then there might be, we'll ask Nelson for an explanation, and he might say, well, we have all of the steel on site, and we need to pay for that steel, and so the percentage complete might look a little higher than it is because we've got all our materials on site or something like that.
And before we, sorry, Mark, just to interject there, before we present anything to the subcommittee, I sit down with the architect, and I'll be sitting down with you, Mark, and we're not just going to be, I know you mentioned first look, but it's already going to be vetted. We're going to be adjusting the trade contractors amounts, and it's going to be signed and notarized, for this committee. And then I'll provide a brief summary to CSG, and then if there's any questions about any line items, we can discuss them at this meeting. But everything will be prior to. Go ahead. Sorry.
So a lot of that operational review is going to be happening with CSG, with TSKP, before anything's coming to this group. Two other groups, I just wonder at what point in time they opine and how it would affect our review. I'm going to forget the name, Megan, of the firm that we engaged to review everything before payment. And what's
Which one, Michael? That review before payment, what do you mean? Give me a little more.
Well, I'll go with the other one that's a little bit easier. The group that we more recently hired that is doing structural testing. Will they be signing off on anything that's structural that we're paying for, so that we know that the testing's been done, or is that not, that'll be worked in a different way?
Yeah, so Michael, no, so those third party consultants, so the structural peer review,
yeah,
and I think you're maybe referencing DTC, who's going to do the professional engineer. They're sort of like a ready check. Their job is to
we'll assume that that's been done, and that nobody's asking for invoices that haven't been.
No, those groups will not be reviewing our invoicing. Not
the invoices, but you will make certain that we're not paying for invoices that they're for work that hasn't been tested or something that should have been, or something that that check step will have happened inside operationally.
If there's sufficient work, we're not going to allow the billing. And again, we review this with the architect. It gets certified on notarized, so the billing that gets presented here has been vetted. And with the test reports from a testing lab, if something is deficient, we hold the percentage on that specific line item.
And I feel like this other thing that I might just be making up in my head, but is there any independent group, Kat, that we're drawing our own bonds for this project? Does anyone independently sort of need to sit and say, another party review to say, yes, this work is complete, and yes, the town should release those funds?
I mean, a lot of that we currently have our owner's rep doing. Typically,
Okay.
Mark will review all the invoices before they come to me and before they go to the agenda. So that's part of
Okay.
their scope.
So nobody else beyond you, Mark, that sort of is a
Well,
check step for the town.
the architect has to certify.
Yeah,
the
yeah, understood,
invoice as well,
understood.
yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think of a party outside of the group that we've got on this call.
No. not
Okay,
that I'm-
okay.
Let me just add, this like detailed spreadsheet does not have to go beyond this committee. We can kind of keep it, you know, depending on what you guys feel comfortable with, we can keep it amongst us. And then if we need to send out like a budget update, we can do something that's a little more high level and show that to the building committee. It's just kind of whatever everyone's level of comfort is with how much they want to share with everybody. I know everyone may have a say or input on that, but I just wanted to say that this detailed spreadsheet doesn't have to go beyond everyone on this call.
My initial thought is, because we have this group doing the work, I don't think it has to go frequently, but I don't think it hurts to go at various checkpoints, like 25% complete through construction, 50%, you know, like these milestone checkpoints. I think it would be helpful to share where we are with the committee.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody has any other thoughts, feel free to jump in.
Is there a space where you, and this may be something that gets reviewed with the entire building committee, but is there a space, I might be missing it here, that tracks where we are in terms of a positive or negative buyout?
What do you mean? Like what we've already bought out for the project?
Correct.
No, I don't know how we could really track that, to be honest.
O&G, I think, will, and Nelson, you can correct us if I'm wrong, but will be giving us project updates as to buyout, right? So Michael, it's a little different again, with public work, right? So it's low bid, and as long as
low bid,
low bid is vetted, that's who's getting the job.
So I will say, typically on like O&G's requisition, so what O&G will submit, if stuff like materials have been purchased already and they're not on site and they're being stored off site, they will typically, and Nelson can correct me if I'm wrong, they'll typically review that, and that will show up as like stored materials on their sheet, and then that'll kind of be an indication of what we've purchased in terms of material wise.
Yeah.
Samantha, no, yeah, what Michael is getting at is if the bids come in, there's no buyout on, you know, a low bid public job. So it's not like we're negotiating with trades and getting additional buyout. So what my report, which will detail the GMP side, I don't have one for today, but as we move along in the next few months, I'll have a very detailed report as far as the GMP, the contingencies, the allowances. There'll be a summary of allowances, and if the bids come in under budget, you'll see, you know, that will reflect in this page that Mark has. So my report will show the GMP in a more granular information, and if the bids come in under budget, that savings line item, and that's up to CSG and the town to decide on. Do you want to, on the last job, we actually tracked it as a bid savings line item. So you had your contingency, which was established prior to bid, your owner's contingency, and then there was a bid savings line item where technically it was an additional contingency that the town had. So I think
Nelson,
that
what
answers
happens
your
in this
question.
situation? Yeah. So I was just wondering, is that a separate tracking that this committee will review, or is that for the entire building committee?
I will present my report to the entire building committee and this committee as well.
Okay.
But that report is a deliverable with, it's going to have a cost report. It's going to have a summary of all the change orders within the GMP and outside of the GMP, because there will be out of scope changes. It will have photos, project photos. That report is probably a 50-page report. And as we go further into the project, as the change orders get rolled into the report, it becomes a long report. I'll have a project summary of work that's taken place for that period. I'll have any cost impacts, supply chain issues, and basically that gives the committee, the building committee, a snapshot in time for that period ending. And it dovetails a little bit with the billing in the sense that I'll provide a cutoff for costs. It won't be exactly to because your pay application is not a billing report, but when I have my cutoff period, it depends. Each town has a different schedule for their billing committee. Some are the third week of the month. Others are the first of the month. So my report is always to the end of the billing period. So if it's always going to be the last day of the month.
So my question is, you identify a situation where bids come in lower than the GMP, and there's a savings or a credit there. Explain to me what happens in the opposite direction.
That
they come back higher.
It wouldn't be in my so my GMP is the GMP, which is not established yet. But any negative savings, then that's on the owner's side. CSG, okay. What
Okay, and then are there any? This is the part where I don't think I could be wrong, so I don't want to misspeak. Is it possible to see where the GMP contract language stands? Is there anything that we've put in here that allows for an exception with a supply chain problem or an escalation thing related to the pandemic or anything else that can be passed on to the owner as a potential increase?
Supply chain issues, rarely do they come. I don't want to say never, but rarely do they go to the owner side, because our contract language, contractors have to buy out. We give them a limited notice to proceed. They have to, issue their purchase orders based on, the product spec and availability. They have to notify prior to bid if there's supply chain issues currently. But we'll work with the architect and the design team, which has happened on occasion where they let's say, I don't know, roof installations, doors, actually, the doors, the glues for the doors, or I had a job where they have to change the doors, door manufacturer. That basically the architect worked with us to pick an alternate manufacturer that wouldn't impact the job. But
okay,
but if
it does impact the job, then that cost gets passed on as a PCO.
If there's escalation in because they didn't buy something out or supply chain came up, rarely does it go to the owner side, because we have contract language with the trade contractors that they can't. If the price dropped for deflation, they wouldn't be presenting us credits. So it goes both ways. So
okay.
Increases, any price fluctuation based on post bid, that's their problem.
And if you found that to be the case, that when the post escalation turns out to be 30% or 20%, that they still perceive it's their problem?
Well, we had on a roofing contractor that threatened litigation, but it's hard unless they could prove that. Let's say they have their roof insulation and there was a natural disaster.
You're bringing up a good one of insulation, because that is one that has escalated pretty quickly in the past several months. And I'm finding that in a job too, where somebody's saying, I can prove to you that when I bid the job, this is the price of the insulation, but the insulation has now gone up 20%, and we want to pass that on as a change order. So I just want to be able to be clear. Could that be a situation that we too might face?
I had that situation, actually.
Right.
I had it on the last job, and they yelled and screamed, and it was actually you know, it was a substantial request, and it didn't go anywhere because, again, they have to buy out their material at the time, and it just didn't go anywhere. Prices go up, prices fluctuate.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody should have bought it out and they didn't, then that's certainly their problem. But if it's a condition of which the pricing has been quoted prior to buyout and sort of immediately thereafter, there's an increase. That I guess that's what I'm just trying to. I'm trying to ask the questions of what might the owner be at risk here in any situation under anything. And I you know, my sense is something like that's going to come up, and I just want to be able to anticipate and understand how we address it.
The only time that I would see that it would occur is if basically your suppliers, they were hit with, and actually it happened with John Mansville years ago, where the factory, the main distributor for the entire United States, this was about 20 years ago, the factory burnt down in the Midwest. You could not get, you have to actually procure different sources. So when something like that happens, which is very rare, where they can't now go with the suppliers that they, you know, that they cut purchase orders to, that would be a situation where they're probably entitled to, because they can't physically get their hands on any product other than other sources that are more expensive. But in the case that we're in right now, you know, we've had a few requests for additional, and every single time we were able to push back on it. Again, if prices
And if you
are
push back
dropping,
on it, do any of those trades then have the option to say, well, then I'm out. I'm not going to do that work and lose money?
when I had a toilet partition guy that said he couldn't supply the lockers, and he said he wasn't going to be able to do it because it was a small supplier. And what we worked with them and the architect to pick an alternate. So we also don't want somebody to go out of business and then have a bonding company come in. So we will assist them.
Okay.
But again, the instances are going to be few that a supply chain issue gets passed on to the committee.
Okay.
Yeah. Michael, there is some language in ONG's contract, COVID related language that, you know, would identify an opportunity for a percentage to be used out of their
Contingency.
DC contingency, correct?
Okay.
And the reason for that is when, as everybody remembers, when the COVID regulations were coming out, no one knew what was coming. You know, the state just issued fiats, and basically the suppliers would never know. So that's why that language is in there. If out of their control, if there's regulations that they couldn't foresee. So COVID is a little bit of a separate issue, but, and I think we're out of that, but for the most part.
Yeah. Agreed. All right.
Raj, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had, in the regular building committee meetings when we approve the funds, one thing that always I wondered was, is there a way to look ahead? Because since this is a scheduled project plan, is there a way to know what we're going to spend in the future? If not, 6 months ahead, but at least in the next month or two, what kind of invoices are going to come the building committee is expected to approve? Because every time I approve, I wasn't sure, was it expected or was it something happened, right? Was it in the amount that was planned, or, so there's no idea of, at least for me, the invoices we are approving, was it already planned, or was it approximately the rate of cost that was supposed to be incurred in that time period? There's no idea. We are just approving it.
We have a CSG has put together a cash flow projection that shows, and I think it'll get a little bit more descriptive once we have a total budget after the bid. But we do have a tracking mechanism for what we anticipate we're spending when reimbursements coming in. Mark, if it's okay with you, maybe we could share that at this next subcommittee meeting.
Sure. Yeah, we could do it at the next meeting for sure.
Yeah, that'll help us to see, just projected cost versus actual cost tracking to that. there'll be small discrepancies here and there based on timing or, the sequence of work planned versus actual. Just that'll help us just to see where we are heading, because at this time, at least personally, I don't know what's happening. We just approve it, hoping everything is, the due diligence has been done in the background, right? So I think that would also help the larger building committee to see, just a rolling 3 months or 2 months, just to see, what's expected in the next meeting. And then when we ask for, they know, okay, this is matching what we had done, something to that, close to that effect, right? So.
Sure, we can show that that timeline. It is a it does identify sort of a monthly a value that we anticipate. What the committee is going to be really validating and what the professional team needs to stand behind is that this schedule of values. So you're going to see a list, and we'll when you go through and look at the approval, each month the invoice will have every trade contractor's line item there, and there'll be a % complete, and it'll be up to us to tell you that that work is actually what you're paying for is actually done. There's also we also hold retainage on every invoice, so there's a percentage of retainage that's held back monthly that the contractors don't get until the end of the job when we release retainage. So there are dollars that are also held back for work that for a percentage of work that hasn't been complete yet. And we'll kind of go through each one of you'll get a feel as we go through the first couple of months of invoices. You'll really start to get a feel for how the process works and what we're looking at month after month. So
is this something we could do for now also until the construction begins, or is it only? Okay.
Well, we won't have the schedule of values until we get award and we have the final budget, but you'll see what the enabling plan schedule of values looks like, and you'll get a little flavor for what that's going to be.
Because the reason I was saying is, there must be planned activities even on a monthly basis for now, and the estimated cost for those leading up to the beginning of the construction, right? Because in every month we approve something, but I have no clue whether that was planned or that just happened, and was that the total amount that was planned?
So
I can add to that.
Yeah, so
nothing gets billed that's not an approved, that it's not contract or an approved change order. So Mark, you're going to be rolling in change orders as they're approved into your cash flow projection, which will fluctuate. The cash flow projection is not going to be an exact amount.
Right.
As an example, when rooftop units in offsite stored material, where there's going to be the state paperwork file, the insurance requirements offsite, that equipment could be purchased, 6 months ahead of and stored offsite with those insurance certificates, and the cash flow would have to be adjusted because that work those pieces of equipment, which are expensive, wouldn't be hitting the job site at the time where they were technically scheduled to install it. So billing line, nothing gets billed. There's no surprises in billing. Billing is contract work and change orders that were previously approved. I don't know, Mark, if you want to add anything to that, but there's not going to be surprises in billing where it's going to be stuff that's billed that was not known about.
No, that's what I'm asking. Just even for now on a regular basis, can we show it for what we have? Because every month we approve, I have no clue. I mean, at least I don't know if others saw, but I don't know clue whether that work was planned or was that the amount we are supposed to approve.
So we're approving work that's been completed. So for example, if
I understand that.
Yeah.
Is there a way to forecast in this next month? You can say this is the next month work going to be done. This is the approximate cost you're going to get for invoices to approve. Something like a headlight, just on a rolling basis. Because people can anticipate that, okay, this is the work that's going to be done and this is the invoice we're going to approve for that. Because as of now, we just get invoices, we approve in the meeting, and I personally have no clue.
Let me have a little opportunity to kind of review with ONG and see if there's some sort of projection we can put together, because it's really.
Are you asking a question? Is the question about cash flows?
No, it's like, anytime when we do a project, you need to anticipate what's expenses are going to occur every month for what work is planned, right? I personally don't see that in the building committee meeting reviews, right? We just approve invoices. I have no clue what it is for. Was it planned? Was there a surprise element there? Is there a big deviation from what was planned? I have no idea.
I mean, my understanding is that we have contracts for each of those invoices, and they articulate what's being done, and the invoice details what portion of the work's been done. And so, I mean, from what I'm trying to ask, are you looking for a timing of when those invoices would be made? Because it seems as though we have what would be needed more beyond the approval of the contract and a process for improving the invoices. It seems to me that the only thing that would be left would be a schedule of cash flows.
No, let me give you an example, right? This is the building committee happening. It would be nice to see, okay, next month, this is the amount of work is going to go, and that's how much invoice you're going to see in the next meeting for the work that will be done. So there's some anticipation that, that work is being done and that the invoices we're going to approve in the coming meeting.
Mark, your cash flow projection has that for our professional partners.
It does.
I think that would be helpful.
That might be helpful to share then.
Yeah.
So we have TSKP's sort of projected, our own projected, right? Because pre-construction is all administrative, it's mostly monthly costs. So it's billed every month, and it's declining, and we can certainly share that for pre-construction and what we have now. Moving forward with how much drywall would be installed by this time, and how much concrete and how much site work, I'd have to kind of consider putting that value together with our construction schedule, which the schedule will be finalized and built with the team that's selected. So I guess more to come on that, Charles, but we want you to be comfortable in terms of what you're approving. One thing that you haven't seen at the building committee level is this spreadsheet where, we budgeted this much, we've spent this much, and this is how much we're approving that this month. But we can certainly share that in our next facilities committee meeting.
Yeah,
and I think the cash flow projection, once you see it, will help, I think, a little bit. And then if there's no information you're missing, I think we can then, make sure we build something that gets what you're comfortable with. Right. But I think once you see the cash flow projection, which we'll put on the next meeting, I think that's going to be very helpful in anticipating, what we're going to be paying.
Okay.
Kat, at a real high level, what amount of money has sort of sits in escrow for this project right now?
So earlier this year, we bonded approximately, we did a $40 million bond, and the majority, I don't know the exact number, it's probably like 37 million is for this project. So we are actually ahead of schedule in our bonding. We were only supposed to do about 20 million in our first issue. We captured a great interest rate. So it actually is beneficial. We have a good amount of money right now.
So where in our cash flows do you feel that takes us to in terms of cash flow projections? Roughly, I don't, not looking for a month, but what year are we into that we're good for so far?
Well, we were going to be anticipating issuing another bond in the I think it's like the winter of 23. I'll have to meet with our finance director and see if that plan has been changed. Maybe it's a little bit later in 23. I think we just need to see what our we need to revisit the cash flow after the bids and see what we're going to be spending out.
Good. All right. That's what I was just thinking at a high level. If that we get that flow, that to me, that at a macro level feels pretty significant.
Right.
At least to track. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are ahead of schedule in what we anticipated to bond.
Great.
I just want to make sure we're cautious of time too. We still have a couple other agenda items that we want to make sure we get through today as well. So Sam, is there more to that documentation that we need to see today, you think, in preparation for the next meeting, or is it more beneficial for us to kind of see the more of the process next time?
I can just run through real quick, typically what we'll present at each subcommittee meeting, and then
Okay,
that should
perfect.
be it. So how we set it up is we use it. This is like our vendor template. So for every vendor or company we have on the project, we set one of these up, and this ties back into this spreadsheet here. So this will give a breakdown of what invoices for each vendor. So like this is O&G, for example, and a breakout, and then how much each invoice was, and then typically we'll highlight which ones need approved. And then there'll be a total that needs to be approved for that meeting, and then it'll calculate how much is left after those invoices are approved. And typically what we'll do is we'll print this out and kind of put it as a cover page to all the invoices. So each vendor will have their own cover sheet. And like I said, this ties back into that general spreadsheet. So once things get paid, then we'll adjust the numbers accordingly, and then it'll update that larger spreadsheet that I showed you in the beginning. So it pretty much looks similar for all of the other vendors. I did want to show you real quick. This is just what I've done on another project, and if Kat wants me to do this, I can do it as well for you guys. It's just that this is my current project in Enfield, but I'll just put together kind of like a summary of invoices that we need approved or changes that we need to review. And I can send this to Kat, and she could send it out to everyone prior to the meeting. That way we kind of have a detailed list of everything that we need to review, whether it be invoices, changes, adjusting purchase orders, getting proposals approved, things like that. So if this is something you want to do for Farmington, I have no problem doing that as well. I just want to make sure everyone is comfortable with what we're reviewing and everyone's on the same page. So
I think that would be really helpful, Sam, to have a summary of what is anticipated for approval.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of all I wanted to show you, Mark. If I missed anything, chime in, or if anyone has any other questions, let me know. But like I said, we can adjust things and move things around based on what you guys feel comfortable with. This is just what we've used on previous projects, and it seems to work well for everybody. So
yeah, and as we get more into it, we'll also be tracking things like the state contract, state change orders, again, ineligible bonding, all of that. So
yeah, so we have this is like an eligible cost tracker. So this will track what state change orders we're submitting to the state for them to review, and we can break it out. So we have an eligible cost, so things that are eligible for reimbursement from the state per each change order, and then the same thing for things that may not be eligible for the state reimbursement, and then what the total cost of each change order is. And we'll update this as we submit them. So
yeah. All right, thank you, Sam. I appreciate the
yeah, no problem.
Let's do that.
All right, so it sounded to me like, based on the discussion, the kind of the inputs for the meeting would be that that detailed budget report that Sam just shared with us, with the additional detail behind it, cash flow projection sheet that we've discussed as something that we're going to share and evaluate at the next meeting and see how that looks, and if there's something we need to modify based on additional understanding there. The invoice summary that Sam just showed us as well, which we would also have the availability to see the backup invoices, I would assume, associated to that. So it sounds to me like those would be our inputs and what we would have prior to each meeting. Am I correct in that?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And then when would we normally get them, just to kind of give us an idea of how much time we'd have to review or evaluate prior?
So typically, I'm assuming, will the meetings be held on Thursday mornings?
I don't know, Sam, but we'll get to it in our agenda. I'm just thinking, like, is it 3 days in advance?
Yeah, whatever you guys want. I can send it to you like the Monday before the meeting, if that works. I don't know, Kat, when you typically put the agenda out.
Yeah, I need to typically post an agenda if it's virtual, 48 hours before the meeting. If it's in person, 24. So I think if we have a couple days notice, that gives me time to include it in the agenda, and then it gives the subcommittee members time to review, take a look at what we're going to be approving.
Okay, so why don't we shoot for like the Monday of the week of whatever the meeting is?
Okay.
Does that work? And then if we have to adjust it, we can. If we need more time, that's fine.
Okay, and we'll talk about when we as a group should meet at that agenda item.
Mhm.
But I think that would work.
Okay, perfect.
Anything more kind of on, I think we can kind of make some, we'll probably put some documentation. I can help Kat, you and I maybe can sit down and kind of just document some of what we thought here for roles, responsibilities, and those kind of things. So just so we have that and present it at the next meeting, so everybody's in alignment and understanding of our goals and what we're trying to accomplish for each of these, if that makes sense for everybody.
Yep.
All right, I know there's a lot more to come on process. I think we're probably all eager to just give this a shot and see what everything looks like. But for now, is everybody okay for kind of just an initial overview of what we saw? Any other questions or thoughts before we move on to item C? Okay, perfect. So our first kind of official action here as the committee. So we will have to put a motion forward to approve the attached invoice from O&D Industries in the amount of $655,724.99 for work associated with the early enabling package. So if I could get a motion for that. This would be Michael or Suraj.
Motion.
So moved.
We'll split you.
Yeah.
One motion, 1 second. So we'll open this one up for discussion, as we mentioned before. So this will be part of, we're kind of catching up a little bit from our first evaluation, but anything, Mark, or anybody who can provide us information on what we have in our packet here that we should be concerned about, need to take a look at, or we're in good shape as far as what you guys could see here, and anything we need to know for approval.
No, what this looks like is you'll see a cover sheet every month from O&G. It's the G702, and it is that contractor's application for payment column on the left-hand side will always look the same. It'll give you the original contract sum. If there are any change orders, those will be in that next column. And then, so what the contract sum to date would be, so any change orders up or down would revise that contract number. And the total completed and stored to date, that's that I think that's 703. I apologize, I don't have my glasses this morning, but then you see that retainage, right? So there's a percentage of retainage that's held until after we authorize and say that there's no more work or we're not owed anything else, and we'll get a retainage invoice, an invoice just for retainage that will release what we've held back to the subcontractor. So we hold it as long as we feel it's fair. We all go through, we punch list our items. If our contractor is allowed to be released, that retainage will release that retainage to them, so they're not held out 2 years. We'll have to look at contract terms in terms of our release of retainage, but then there's total complete stored to date. And then total earned. So it's what they're billing us less what we as the owner are holding back from them, and then they get paid that total earned. These are reflections of all the subcontractors' invoices that they give them. So if you scroll to the next sheet, and you can see that there are different descriptions of work. So they've got all the different descriptions. You see Gerber's site work invoice. There'll be O&G is required to carry a P&P bond, so performance and payments bonds, pricing and advertising. They have a GL insurance. All of those get billed a certain percentage as the percentage of the job is complete. they have a CM contingency, that they have flexibility and what that contingency gets spent on. And then we would ask Nelson, if Nelson is billing the contingency for anything, we would ask for an explanation. Their CM fee, and then their so that fee is there. That's their, it's, you know, it's a guaranteed maximum price. So essentially it's the cost plus their fee. And then the any reimbursables that were that are in the job. And so there's a grand total of the 2 million. If we were looking at the main project, this would be many pages long, and it would include things like site work, you know, concrete, you know, all of the trades, drywall, with doors and windows, hardware, finish, trim, you know, all of, there'd be a lot of line items that we're going to be looking at and validating percents complete. So if you go,
can I interject here?
yeah,
I just want to explain the CM contingency line item that will never get billed. What happens is when there's a change order, that gets in my cost report will detail, you know, the CM contingency change orders. That dollar amount, let's say it's $5,000 from contingency, that gets funded to the appropriate line item to the trade contractor that has that change order. So the contingency would go down by $5,000, and then whatever trade received that change order, that would get, let's say Gerber got a $5,000 change order, so their contract schedule value would increase to $1,850,000, which their schedule of values further down would reflect that, and then it would show the change order that was actually brought up, and then the contingency line item would draw down. So it's a draw.
Yeah, there's never going to be a this period.
There's never a billing on
in that
allowances are the same thing, because that's a GMP allowance for site security lighting. It's not in Gerber's contract, but if there's a change order to add site security, you know, additional lighting, that basically would be like a contingency draw, but it would be an allowance draw. So the same would happen there. The CM reimbursables, our office sent this bill out primarily to get Gerber paid. So the CM reimbursables actually is lumped in with the general conditions on the next billing. Our general conditions, if you notice, we've been out there 2 months and we're not billing yet. So we have to break out that reimbursable from our normal general conditions. Again, this bill was put together so that Gerber would have cash flow because they performed a substantial amount of work. So on the next bill, those will be adjusted accordingly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify those two items.
And then thanks, Nelson. Kat, can you just highlight column E? So that column right there, that's this period. That's every month. That's the column we're going to be going through and looking at the dollars that O&G would be billing us for this month, and for each one of those items. And then, you know, the next column F is materials presently stored. So if there are materials that are stored off site, they're paying for, they've been invoiced for. They may or may not be on site. Those would be where that column would be. So those two columns is where we would see new dollar values inputted into the ask for the month. And so every month O&G zeroes out those, and the numbers then go to the column D, where it's from previous applications. So everything we approve this month will end up in that previous application column, and they'll start fresh with the next month's billings. They'll move over to G, which is the total completed and stored to date. So those E and F together, and then it gives the percent. It gives you a percentage of how much is done. So if you were to look at just, they're billing us 100% of their GL insurance. They're billing us 37% for Gerber's work. So as we look to approve this invoice, we say did the subcontractor complete 37% of the work that was required of them? We know the job is almost done. They've got to be about a week left. So we know their billing is behind schedule, as Nelson has said, from the actual work that's been installed. And so that's kind of a general way of kind of going through each of these and identifying that we are certifying that. And if you, Kat, if you flip back up to the first page, you'll see that the architect and it's signed by Michael Scott on August 15th had certified that the work was done in the field. So his job is to do inspections, provide reports, and certify that what O&G is billing us has in fact been installed and installed the way that the architect designed them.
In the billing period so this bill, it's at 37%, and it was end of period in the top. I'm pointing to my screen, which the top of if you scroll down slightly, it'll say billing period 2/7/31. So 7/31, they were there for about 3.5, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I do also want to.
Hey, Nelson, I don't want to interrupt you, but we're going to lose Michael at 9:30.
Sorry.
So no, that's all right. No, we just have to vote.
Oh, sure.
Before,
Go ahead.
Because he's got to drop off, and I probably have to drop off pretty quickly after that too, just for
no
some
problem.
additional things. So
Sure thing.
let's just put that out. I know we have more. This is not why we don't want to shorten the conversation, but the motion's on the table. So all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so motion carries for that one. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but we want to make sure we get that vote in. And Michael,
It's all right. I've got to jump, but good luck with the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, and we'll let you know. We'll get information on the upcoming meeting schedule with you as well.
Sounds
So,
good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Michael.
Everybody else okay for a few minutes or?
Yeah, a few minutes, yeah.
Okay, me too. Go ahead, Nelson, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say retainage. It'll each contractor, because they're CHRO affirmative action plans, that 2%. So it's 5% across the board for all the trade contractors, and then there's an additional 2%. So when we get that paperwork for the retainage from CHRO that it's okay to release, CSG is going to get copied, and we get that document, and then we release the retainage accordingly. And then with materials presently stored, we will have the UCC 1 filings, which is for the off-site stored material, which is a state of Connecticut filing with all the required insurances. So if anything is billed under that column, that has paperwork. So to make a long story short, as we move along, these payment applications are going to be hundreds of pages with documents, certifications, insurance certificates.
So these are rolling month? Is a calendar month a period, or how do we consider it?
The period ending is always the last day of the month. So July has 31 days. So that's my cutoff. And it keeps everything clean. So I cut the financials period 2/7/31. End of month.
End of month, okay.
Any other thoughts or questions on this?
No, in fact, this was actually what I was trying to ask in my earlier questions. This is exactly what I was looking for. So it's all in this sheet here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you'll see this. Yeah, that's kind of where I was hoping you'll see this. You'll see this moving forward with all of the trades. Right? So if you scroll down those hundreds of pages, you'll see that that's O&G's documents, and now you'll get one for each trade, and each trade will have everything that's included in their scope of work. So you'll get one for site. So you'll see every item that they're billing for, which rolls up. So this is Gerber's. So for example, this is
Yeah, it'll show the soil erosion control measures,
Right.
it'll show the excavation. They're not billing for closeout warranties or anything like that. So it shows line item, a very granular
Right.
detail of what
So-
they're billing.
What they're billing, right? I think that's really all I had. I think the only other thing we need to do is upcoming meeting schedule, right?
I think that's the only other thing we had on the agenda for us today. So
So Nelson, if you were to figure that you would be getting everything by the end of the month and it takes you time process, and Michael, you're going to have to certify each one of these, by what day of the month do you think the finance committee should meet so that it could then be prepared to present at a building committee meeting? So is it is it the first week of every month that
Yeah, it should be the second week, because what I do is I open up a billing draw for the trades on the 20th, typically of the month, of that month, where they'll project out until the end of the month, basically about a week. Michael and I'll allow them about a week. Then I close the draw in Textura. Then Michael and I will review. That takes about another week. Then once that review process is done, the Textura portion goes fairly quick. But being that so if there's something that's billed, that they thought they were going to get by the end of the month, and it doesn't come in or it doesn't get done, it gets adjusted back. So to get all the certified payment applications notarized, all the paperwork together, the first week is just very short. So I would say the PBs or the sub-finance committee, the second week, and then we present invoices the third Wednesday of the month. So the building committee, I don't know how the building committees.
First and third, right?
It's the first and third.
Well,
So-
it's every other, so it moves.
yeah,
Depending on how
right.
many weeks, like this month, we have 3 meetings.
If we could keep it on because if we push it to the last week of the month, it starts pushing it into the 45 days with the trades, because then emails start coming as far as payment. I would recommend, the second week of that month, and then are the meetings going to be on Thursdays, or?
Well,
it's
so like
established
for
a
example,
Thursday meeting?
in September, the full building committee meets September 14th and 28th.
So could we have the sub-finance on a Monday, and then the recommendation for the building committee meeting that Wednesday of the second week of the month?
Yeah, we could do that. I just would need it in the morning because I have to get the agenda out. So basically, this subcommittee needs to approve the invoices in order for the invoices to make it to the full agenda.
Yeah.
So if we do Monday morning, that's fine. I just need to get the agenda out Monday afternoon.
Yeah, that we would basically have, and it'd be fresh in everybody's mind, having a Monday morning meeting. And again, I'm gonna, Michael and Mark have to chime in on their schedule, but having it, then we're getting everything wrapped up in a 2 to 3 day period. We would have everything, I would say by, if it's a Monday, we would have to have it, and it's 48 hours business days, right?
Yeah.
So that the first week, yeah.
So like, for example, if we were to meet on Monday, the 12th, which is the week of the building committee meeting, I would probably need to get the agenda out by Thursday, the 8th.
Which is Thursday, the 8th.
Yeah, so we're really talking about meeting a week ahead
Yeah, I really think you need to.
of the
So
building
let's-
committee meeting. We'll
let's-
have to fold this in like we do the working groups, we do the, you know, we're going to have to fold it into those sessions, I'm
Yeah.
afraid.
Okay.
And we can, I mean, we have the building committee meeting schedule set through December.
Mhm.
After, I mean, we can modify that in 2023 to do the first and third week or the set, you know, just to make it a little bit easier when we have all of these.
Okay.
We could play around with the schedule if we need to, but
Well,
it's been set for a while.
Yeah.
But for now, the next committee meeting is the 8th.
We have one next Wednesday, and then the next committee meeting after that is September 14th.
Okay, so the 14th, because I'm going to have another bill that I'm in the.
Yeah.
So the 14th would be the, you know, where we would need it approved at the building committee. So prior to that, whatever works for the subcommittee.
Yeah, so Nelson, what I'm hearing is we should target the 7th for the next financial subcommittee, the 7th or the
Right.
8th.
Which
for the
means
next
we would-
financial subcommittee.
and then the committee would need it 2 days before that. So if we're going to target a meeting for the 8th, then Nelson
Labor Day.
and Michael, we would need a certified.
Labor Day.
I'm not working Labor Day. I'll be laboring.
I'm just, so I, you know, maybe it's less for the understanding the work. Next week, the work will be done, right? And the we're only going to be approving enabling invoices and pre-con invoices. We don't expect to start construction till November 10th. So the finance committee will be reviewing very limited items for the next, you know, few months. Once we get started in November, and then, you know, as December comes, that's when the real work begins in my opinion.
Yeah, that's when the real work, the majority of the work starts.
Yeah.
But you will still have some billing, but it's going to be plantings and that go into October, but it's going to be very small, you know, small dollar values.
Yeah, the committee work will be limited until that time anyway. So it might
Okay.
work out for a few meetings over the next couple of months. And then, Kat, like you said, if we have an opportunity to go to the first and third, you know, Wednesday or something like that, it might work well in terms of
Okay.
processing.
We'll get everything for this month ready for that 7th or the 8th.
Okay.
Now, for the committee, does this 8:30 time frame work for everybody in the morning to have a meeting?
Works for TSKP.
Yeah, it works for us too.
Works for us.
I just have to be careful of the day
Okay.
we choose and which, never mind, I'll figure it out with you, Cap. I just have a Thursday, every other Thursday standing work meeting at 8:30 that I can't
Would
move.
Wednesday be better? Wednesday mornings?
We have our OAC meetings.
Oh, you have your OAC.
Yeah.
Friday? 8:30 on a Friday?
No one likes Friday meetings.
Better than a 4 o'clock meeting on a Friday.
Never schedule a meeting in Friday afternoon.
And we said
Tuesday?
Monday's too late, right?
Well, Monday's just, we could do Mondays, but that also is Labor Day for that
Sure.
specific week.
A
And
Tuesday works for me. Tuesday at 8:30.
I could probably make that work the easiest if we do
Okay.
Tuesdays.
Suraj, does Tuesdays at 8:30 work for you? And I can try to put together a schedule on our next meeting to have the dates set. But we'll shoot for Tuesday, September 6th as our next subcommittee meeting.
And we're Zoom until we.
Yeah,
hear
does
other-
the Zoom
okay.
work for everybody or would we prefer in person?
Zoom works
No,
for me.
Suraj.
It doesn't, what, Suraj, it doesn't work for you? You don't like it? Or you like it?
No, Zoom, only Zoom works for me.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, me too. On Tuesdays especially, only Zoom works for me.
Okay, so our next one will be September 6th at 8:30 over Zoom. And then I'll take a look at our schedule and I'll work with ONG and CSG to try to have some set dates in advance so that we're kind of all on the same page.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I think just adjournment,
Yep,
Meg.
yep. So could I have a motion to adjourn, Suraj?
Motion to adjourn.
I will second. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We will adjourn at 9:43.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.